I'm at Victory 23, as you guys know. With me right now in this interview is Louisiana State Representative Danny McCormick. Representative McCormick, thank you so much for being on there. Really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. You bet.
I like your YAL bumper sticker there.
Yep, Young Americans for Liberty.
Yeah, they're a good.
You know, I don't look like a young American, but I really am.
Well, you might not look like one, but you think like those guys.
There you go. Liberty's in the bones.
Well, not only liberty, but they are concerned about the future of our country.
That's correct.
And I think you're not only concerned about the future of our country, you're concerned about the future of Louisiana, from what I hear.
You bet, no doubt. Always out. You know, I've always said I have the fire of liberty burning in my belly ever since I was a young man. I desire nothing else but to be a free man.
I love this.
You bet.
Well, not only do I know you desire to be a free man, you've done a lot of things that promote freedom and liberty in our legislature that you've been a part of. What are some of your biggest things that you've done for freedom and liberty?
You've been seeing besides constitutional carry? I mean, I'm looking.
That counts as like 1 through 10.
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly right. You know, 27 other states now have constitutional carry. Every state touching Louisiana has constitutional carry. And it's just sad that we're at the point where we don't have it. I look forward to a good, strong Republican governor that will be willing to sign a true constitutional carry bill. And I want them to say true is at 18 years of age, my granddaughter will be able to put a pistol in her purse and protect herself from murders and rapists and tyrants.
Isn't it? I've heard facts around the country for areas that have constitutional carry or where they have required carry. I forget what state that is, where they have where everybody can carry. You might be knowing what I'm talking about, but the crime rates are lower.
You bet. I mean, when citizens are able to defend themselves, the crime rates will be lower. That you know, you think the politicians would understand that, but they don't seem to understand that letting law-abiding citizens protect themselves lowers the crime rate. It seems like a no-brainer to me, but I don't know. Some of them have trouble with that.
Well, I've watched you work in the legislature. I've watched from the sides of the main room. I've watched in the committee rooms, and you always seem to be fighting on principles and values. And I see that go forth in a lot of your legislation. Do you have anything to talk about with that?
You know, a man doesn't have anything if he doesn't have principles. You know, and I'm not saying that through life my judgments on different things haven't changed, but, you know, if a man can't stand on his principles, what can he stand on? He's just going to blow with any wind that comes by. You know, if my principles are tied to my pocketbook, I really have no principles at all.
That's right.
You know, you can look at our forefathers. They gave up life and fortunes to win our independence. And, you know, and we are just giving it away to these bureaucrats that run our country.
That's right. I asked you that question that way. I'm glad you picked up on exactly how I meant it, which is that we talk about our freedoms and liberties as a way to not only happen in our country, but also how that transfers here to Louisiana. So what are you doing to protect it in Louisiana?
You know, anything from religious liberty to, let's talk about the mask mandate they're talking about putting on. You know,
about this,
yeah. You know, and not in Louisiana, but in some parts of the nation. Well, the simple thing is you don't comply with it. If you do not want to wear a mask,
my body, my choice, right?
That's right. Do not comply. And the tyrants don't know what to do when people doesn't comply. Only we give them strength when we bow down and comply to their schemes. I'm
going backwards for just a minute about principles. We're talking about principles, and a man doesn't have anything if he doesn't have principles. I've also noticed that you tend to lean on principles more than narratives. A lot of people will run, when they run for office, they run on the narratives. And then when they get in office, their actions seem to reflect narratives and ideologies instead of principles. Do you find yourself tending to do that more with your principles?
Yes. I mean, I stand on my principles. It's my guidepost. I find my principles in the Bible. You know, there's so many things in there to learn from. I mean, that the Western civilization was founded on the Judeo-Christian principles. I am a Christian, and how do we know that murder is wrong? I mean, you know, how do we know a murder is wrong? Well, it's in the Scriptures is where that came from.
Exactly.
You know, I think there was a time in this world where murder was just everyday. You know, if I can murder you and take your stuff, that was the way life was. But through that, we know what our principles are, and we have to stand on that. That's when I say, when we're talking about murder specifically, I believe life begins at conception. And so my principles have to say that is murder. You know, the question you have to ask yourself, when does that child get their constitutional rights? And, us as lawmakers, we have to make that decision. Now, I'm not saying we all make the same decision, but my decision is solid. I know where I stand.
I understand in Louisiana, Louisiana's Constitution defines life beginning at conception.
That's correct. It is in Louisiana Constitution. That's correct.
So speaking of the Louisiana Constitution, reflecting of our national Constitution, we have the 10th Amendment. And that 10th Amendment protects states' rights. So our state can do things like put things in our state constitution that protects our state and puts up a barrier, from the federal government. But all too often now, the federal government keeps sending the states money, and they attach to that money with ideologies and narratives that they want to see put forth in our states. In my opinion, it pierces that 10th Amendment veil. That federal money pierces that 10th Amendment veil for our state. I worry because we're losing our freedoms and liberties on a bureaucratic level in D.C. I'm worried about that coming to Louisiana.
And it's already here. Well, we've seen that with carbon capture. There's so many debates that we needed to have on carbon capture this last year, but we couldn't have it because the lobbyists that were pushing it demanded that the representatives and senators supported it blindly, and a lot of them did. So yes, what I heard you say is some people say, yes, I have principles unless you pay me, and then I have none.
Exactly.
A principle is something you're willing to die for. If you're willing to be paid off with federal money, there's so many things that we need, and the federal government's going broke. So what's going to happen when they run out of money?
Exactly. When they tell the states, hey, we can't afford to give you that,
And we'll be like a drug addict on withdrawals here in Louisiana because we're addicted to federal money.
Which is probably one of the reasons why some people think that we should not have spent or blown the spending cap.
Yeah,
last time.
That's correct. The one thing to do when you're doing something dumb like taking too much federal money is let's just stop taking new federal money. Let's start weaning ourselves off of federal money. Then we can start rolling it back. But busting the spending cap was just that happened in Baton Rouge was fiscally irresponsible. No conservative should have ever voted for that. It was the easiest vote I ever made. It was a Nancy Pelosi, you got to pass it for what's in it bill. I was not
pass it the last 30 minutes.
Yes, last 30 minutes, and you're being lenient. I think it may be the last after the so-called debate we had, maybe the last 10 minutes. And all we had to do was follow the House rules, but what would have stopped that completely is a majority of the people just need to hit the red button that says no, and everything would have screeched to a halt. That's all it took. And then we could have dismissed ourselves, come back in a week in special session, and hashed it out.
But what about the 3/4 rule at that point?
There again, just hit the red button. That's all you got to do. Just people start hitting the red button, and that stops it.
Okay. I guess there's a school of thought that if they would come back in a special session, the Democrats would have had more control.
Yeah, there's always a fear. Oh my gosh, we come back to the special sessions, the Democrats going to be in charge. They weren't already.
Right.
The Republicans that are really Democrats were in charge, and they were going to be in charge in special sessions. So that was just another threat. They used the fear of you've got to go for this bad bill because it's going to be worse if you don't. I don't. Just say no. You've seen that commercial. This is drugs, and this is your brain on drugs, and this is Baton Rouge, and this is your brain on Baton Rouge. Just say no. It's just simple.
What I like is the healthy discussion that you're offering, and being able to say, hey, look, when there's this much discrepancy on it, it might just be easier to say no and go back to the drawing board to find a better way, and that's what I hear you saying.
Nobody knew what they were voting on. The Senate met 2 weeks after we adjourned to figure out what we voted on. That's ridiculous. That's like drunk sailors. Drunk sailors are more financially responsible than that. You just got to quit doing dumb things, and you got to say no. And that's just as simple as that.
Well, not only do I appreciate the information, I appreciate that you stand on principles, and I appreciate that you work hard for the people, not only in your district, but in the state.
Well,
Any final words to the people in Louisiana?
Just let y'all know that I'm working hard for you, that I will not compromise my principles. When we talk about compromise, you can compromise if we want to cut taxes 0.9% or 1%. That's a compromise.
Right.
But, whether we're going to let boys go in the bathroom with girls, that's not compromise.
That's right.
I will not compromise on that. You know, if they're planning on spending over $1 billion and they're not going to tell me where they're going to spend it, and I'm your representative, I will not vote for it. It's just that simple. It's really easy. It's really easy.
Danny, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. Everybody else, if you know somebody in his district, you might want to share this video because he's running for re-election. And if you believe in somebody who stands on principles, freedom, and liberty, I think this is your guy. Y'all have a good day.